Hello and welcome back to What is Life, Dude, Season 1.
Is this episode 4?
Yes.
Oh, dang. Okay.
It is our last episode. Actually, it's not our last episode of 2018. Last week's was because I'm realizing when this comes out, it will be 2019.
Wow.
We are recording this in 2018 still. We're filming in a new location, which is really just upstairs in our house. And we think it's quite nice.
Yeah.
Hello out there if you're watching. So last week when we talked about the Truman Show, we decided this week we were going to do The Wall by Pink Floyd. But we listened to the album once yesterday and we didn't think we had enough. We didn't get enough out of it on the first listen. We want to find the movie.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, it's like an hour and 20 minutes of music we've never heard, and it's really hard to grasp.
We even had the lyrics printed out and we were following along trying to take notes and stuff, but there's a lot we missed, we believe. So
we're gonna go rent or buy the movie and watch that and see if that helps us have a better understanding of it. So we're gonna skip it this week and we'll do it next week. But Sarah had a good idea last night. She was like, well, instead of just skipping this week's episode altogether, why don't we do like a 2018 recap of sorts?
Top moments.
Top moments.
Things we learned.
Which Rhett and Link, who I love, who I feel like I always talk about on the podcast, they did that on their podcast, Ear Biscuits. And they did like they each picked top 10 moments from their 2018s, and they like went back and forth. But instead of that, I wrote out 5 things that had happened.
Right.
And Sarah has them in her brain, maybe written down.
Yes. I jotted down some notes.
Yeah. And we're just going to explore what happened this year. I'm going to take a sip of this coffee and then we can get started.
All right. Sounds good.
Oh yeah, it's not nighttime, so we're not drinking alcohol, we're drinking coffee.
You go first because I feel a little unprepared.
Do you?
Because for things like this, I really like to think for a long time, and we just conceived of this idea yesterday. So I have a bunch of possible, some candidates for top moments and top lessons learned, but I'm going to tailor it based on what you're saying.
Okay. But before we actually start, I have 2, they're not even runner-up moments, they're just funny things I want to say.
Okay.
First, we finally have these microphones.
Yes.
Which I am so fucking happy about because I love Shure. I love the company Shure.
Sponsor me, Shure.
Sponsor me. Seriously, I have your headphones, I have your microphones, I have everything. Yeah. So we finally have like the SM7B, the microphone for recording podcasts. And I love it, and they look so sexy.
They really do.
And I sound like a radio DJ. One presumes I'm not wearing headphones. And the second thing is one of Sarah's Christmas presents that I got her, which is really also one of my Christmas presents for myself, which is
a bidet.
A bidet.
Well,
which what?
When I visited Bali a couple months ago, all of the bathrooms there, like public bathrooms in our lodgings, all had bidets of different kinds. And it was pretty sweet.
When you walked up, did you say, bidet, don't mind if I badoo?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Don't mind if I badoo do.
I did not talk to the toilet.
You should have. So through some circumstance, some happenstance, I stumbled upon a discount on a bidet that you attach to your toilet. So I bought one for us. And after many, many frustrations of it not working with our toilet seat, having to deconstruct the whole thing, put the toilet seat back on, a week later buy a new toilet seat, have it not work at first and think I had to, I don't know, burn the house down or something.
He was very furious.
I was not happy.
I was washing dishes and he came out and was screaming. He was like, why did I just buy a new fucking toilet seat? It doesn't even work.
Yeah, I was pretty salty. But then I got it to work. I haven't told you this, but do you know why I couldn't get it on yesterday?
What?
I could let's get it on. I could only get one of the one of the bolts screwed on the toilet seat, and I couldn't get the one on the left. You know why?
Why?
I was turning it the wrong way. I was loosening it when I was trying to tighten it.
So you've grown a lot from this experience, clearly.
That's my top moment of 2018 is learning righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
Good job, babe. I'm proud of you.
I love Lefty Lucy. So we finally got it on, and now our B-holes are clean AF.
Also, I like that you introduced it by saying, through some happenstance, I can buy a discount on a bidet. Like, what could that possibly mean?
Like some shady...
I mean, you don't have to explain, but...
like some shady guy I met in an alley was like, "Hey, buddy boy, I got some discount bidets over here. You want one?"
Yeah.
And I walked by and I was like, "Nah, fuck yo." And he was like, "No, I'll give you 25% off if you get a bidet. It's only slightly used."
Ew.
They're clean. Actually, I guess that's not true. Okay, so those are my two runner-up moment type things.
I don't have any runners up.
No.
I'm disorganized.
All right, so should we start? Mm-hmm. Okay. So my first moment, my first event is fairly obvious, probably, which is you moving here.
Wow.
When you moved from California all the way to Colorado to be with me.
Oh, that's not why.
Oh.
I really like mountains.
All right. Well, that's the end of the show. No, it just, I don't even know how to explain it because it was such a monumentous time in my life and yours. What?
The word monumentous.
Monumentous.
You combine monumental and momentous.
Is the monumentous not a word?
We should make that a
make
recurring thing.
We should make
in the
a list
podcast.
of words that I make up.
Yes.
Do you have a pen?
I love it. I have a pen right here and I'm writing down monumentous.
Okay, yeah.
And we're making monumentous t-shirts.
Jot it down.
Yeah. We're going to say more on that?
Yeah. No, that's it. No, I've never been in a relationship like this. This is just going to be like our vows. I love you so much. I don't know, man. It's just different. It was a weird way that
to meet.
Yeah, that we met and got together, and then you just moved here. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm just going to live with this person now." And it has worked out, I think, fairly well, except for me yelling at the bidet. Smashingly.
It's gone smashingly.
You know what I'm saying, though? Mm-hmm. I feel like you moving here and living with you has just made me a different person in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And I don't really know how to quantify it that well, but I just feel like I'm a better person. You feel?
Well, that's what happens in a relationship, ideally, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because when I think about how stressful it was for me to move here, because I have so much fear. I've always been a very fearful person, and I never thought I would. Even the idea of driving that far alone anywhere really scared me. So that I did that I fit all my stuff into my car and just pieced out to my former life is very interesting. And it's something that I forget, or, it's not at the top of my mind always now, but it's, I don't know, just the improbability of us meeting in this way and then ending up together. Sometimes you kind of take that for granted and you don't realize, we have all these things we want to accomplish and it feels very hard and far away and distant and unsure. But it's like, if this is something we accomplished, then we can't rule out other improbable things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's just a lot that comes into play for you moving and your side of the move, right? Because for me, it was like, you visited, we found the apartment we wanted to live in. We made the lease and everything. We're like, okay, I'm going to move in here. Sarah's going to take her time and she's going to come a little bit later. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of just in the apartment setting up what I could and kind of just living alone for a month.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have to do much.
Right.
Because I wanted to move anyway. Mm-hmm. So I moved just like anyone else would move, intrastate. Right?
Yeah.
So I picked up like my little room in my house full of friends and just moved it. Mm-hmm. But you had to decide to leave your whole life. Thankfully, YouTube was becoming your job at that point.
Right.
So you could, tell your other job piece. And it just but it's still a lot, you know? Like you wanted to do that anyway.
Right.
But would you have?
Well, I don't know. I don't even think about that anymore. It's not something that I remember. I hardly remember like who I was or what was going through my mind at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was saying yesterday when we were first talking about this, the concept of today's episode/video, I was thinking it's so hard for me to remember, to put myself back in that mindset. I just remember it like a story, like something I wrote down in my journal, narrated to myself. So it's hard. Everything that happens feels like it had to happen. And I don't know if that's just how everything always feels to me. But I don't feel like I had a choice.
I feel like a lot of memories are like that for me.
Mm-hmm.
Where they just feel like they happen to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very What Is Life Dude?
Right.
And is part of the reason What Is Life Dude exists.
Yes.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in my brain.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's interesting because, and I think this is something we talked about before I came here, is that you said you didn't have to do that much, but actually we were both stuck with tasks that would have been better suited or easier for the other person to accomplish, because I'm very good at sitting and waiting and being patient, and you're not.
Yeah.
And you're very good at taking action.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's a reason that I think we work very well together. And we don't have to talk about this now, but I think it relates a lot to the second move that I went through this year, where we moved into this house. We cut our lease off early just because we were very unhappy in the last place that we were. And like I was saying to you yesterday, if that had been me in control of the entire situation, I just would have waited it out and continued to be unhappy, because I have a lot of inertia. It takes a lot for me to be unhappy with the situation and leave or do something about it, because I hate conflict so much. Whereas you are so action oriented and you're like, we're gonna get this done.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's just take a step back and think about how funny it is, how excited we were to move in with each other into that place.
yeah.
And then how we ended up really, really wanting to move later on.
And
why that happens.
It's not to say that, you know, life is all about being grateful for what you have. And obviously we had shelter and a nice place, cozy place to live. And there's nothing really, really wrong with it. But also we weren't happy there.
Yeah.
And we're a lot happier here.
Mm-hmm. It's just strange how that happens.
Mm-hmm. How you adjust so quickly and find new things to strive for.
To hate.
Well, I don't like to put it that way.
I know.
Right?
I know. Right. Well, that's not what it is.
No. Well, I think
obviously neither of us are people who look for things to
complain about,
to dislike. Do I? Oh my God, am I like that?
You're a lot more. I don't know what the word is, but I mean, how could I describe it? I think I'm just used to finding ways to be okay with things.
When I don't really do that.
You think out loud. Mm-hmm. So if you're upset, it's more likely that I'll know about it, right?
It comes out very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just how you process.
It's just another funny aspect of our relationship.
Yeah.
We're just totally opposite.
Uh-huh.
Which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I had to learn to wait and be patient while you were, because I thought you were coming at the beginning of January of last year.
Right.
Of this year. And then it ended up taking you a month longer than that. And I was like,
well, I don't like, for some reason it really bothers me to be on someone else's schedule.
Yeah.
And a bad habit I have, not even a habit because it's so much a part of my personality and the things that are wrong with my life that it's far beyond habit, is that I will just kind of not pretend things don't need to get done or ignore things. I'm very aware of what has to happen, but I kind of just sweep it under the rug and find ways to occupy myself with other things that need to get done, like work or I don't know. that's a thing that I do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Whereas I wasn't really doing anything that month.
No.
And I was just getting sadder and lonelier, which is not even fair because it was only a month.
Right.
But still, that's something you'd be better suited at. Whereas you said me,
I don't get lonely.
Yeah.
It's
you like
very
being
interesting.
alone.
I love being alone. Like when you're going on a trip in January, and not to say that I want you to be gone, but I won't have any problem being alone during that time.
Yeah. It's also only 5 days. Mm-hmm. What if I went away for 2 weeks? Would it be different?
Somewhat. I'm not saying I wouldn't miss you, but
No, yeah.
I really thrive when I have some space.
Well, there's a difference between being lonely and sending me texts saying, I miss your booty. Right? This is not missing your booty isn't loneliness.
Right.
Whereas I missed you a lot until not until I missed you a lot, and then like a week went by and then I was lonely and I missed you. Mm-hmm. Whereas you'd probably just be like, yeah, I miss him, but he'll be back.
Yeah.
Joe Schmo over here.
Joe Schmo.
So do you want to just segue that into moving into here
Yeah, let's do it.
and how that happened?
Well, we were in this basement, not even apartment. It was really the basement of a house
It was
that
very
was
nice.
owned by this nice old couple in Boulder.
If you're listening, we don't think you're that old.
They're cute little old people.
I know.
And so the daughters, one of the daughters of our landlord and her partner lived upstairs, and we had the downstairs. So we had our own entrance and our own kitchen and washer dryer and everything.
Also, can I just say, so you said her and her partner. Her, remember I thought they were married the whole time?
Right.
Until we were invited to their wedding.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're not married?
Yeah.
I thought they were, okay. Anyway.
Well, they did say not much has changed since they got married.
Yeah, I hear
when
that
you've
happens.
been living together for so long. Anyway, so we were in that arrangement, and it was very small because we both have a lot of things, not crap, but things that we really use and love.
But we both have hobbies that require a lot of stuff.
Plus, I work at home, so I have all my kitchen stuff. I have a lot of filming gear on top of all my kitchen appliances and lighting. And I had to use the lighting all the time because we were in a basement. And living in a basement presents its own challenges because humans need sun, as it turns out. And so I've always dealt with seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression. It's just a thing that happens. And I even lived in California where it doesn't get particularly dark and gloomy. I mean, in the Bay Area, it does get quite cloudy during the winter and even in the summer at times. But I've never had to deal with it that much because of California, and it still affected me. So living in a basement, I wanted to tell myself, I'm such a believer that I can control my reality, my emotional state and master it. But sometimes there's just things that you can't really control. Like you need sunlight.
The real bummer for you probably was that, or one of the many things that added to that situation being a bummer, is that you moved to Colorado knowing that everyone's like 330 days of sun a year. And then you're like, oh, that's amazing.
Right.
And then you move there and you're in a basement and you're like, it's sunny outside, but it doesn't matter down here.
Yeah, and I did
sucks.
what I could to be outside. I would go work at cafes and I would walk to the store most days rather than driving just to be outside. But, sometimes you have to be honest and be like, it's actually a need of mine to be in a space that's well lit.
I think that experience still is recalled fondly by my brain.
Living there? Of course.
Well, it's the
And
first
I'm
place we ever lived together.
Right, and I'm sure as time goes on, it'll become even more and more
Fonder.
fun. It's so funny because after we moved, or while we were moving, we got a cute little letter from the ladies upstairs. And she was talking about how she had these memories of the first apartment they lived together and was really shitty, arguably much shittier than our situation, where things were leaking and there were electrical issues and they had to walk down all these flights of steps to let their dog poop or pee at night.
Yeah.
So but she still thinks of those moments so fondly. She was like, I hope that you can remember this place in the same way.
It's nice because I think the landlords, although they understood our position, are still landlords. But the girls upstairs,
right,
they were just in charge of the property, and we were all friends.
Yeah.
So they like really felt for us, and they knew that we weren't trying to say any of the landlords or them. They're all great people. The place is it's a nice apartment. It's like, it's not expensive compared to everything else in that town. And it's nice. And it was a steal, but for us, it just wasn't right. And they really understood that. And it's very refreshing to have people care.
Right. But it's so funny. I say that a lot. It's so funny when I don't mean it's funny. It's strange it's strange to think about how when we were trying to find someone to replace because we were in the middle of a lease, we were trying to find someone to replace us, and at the same time tried to find a new place to live that met all our needs, and finding that timing, making all that work out in the months right after everyone had just signed new leases because it lined up with the beginning of a new semester at the college. It just seemed like it was going to take forever and be so difficult, and you were also heading into a busy time at work where if we had gotten past a certain point, it would have been really impractical for us to move. You would have been too busy, you know?
Yeah.
So
it was just on the cusp of
just
not being able to move,
being so scared of being locked into the situation for so long,
especially in the winter. I mean, it's snowing right now and it's like 10 degrees outside, but I'm looking out. You can't see outside, can you? That way?
A little bit.
But it's just beautiful in the house.
Right.
The snow makes it even brighter up here.
I love
and it's
it.
just reflecting. I mean, we're not using any lights or anything to film this. It's just reflecting from outside. But when you're in a basement, it's the same. You can't wake up and like see the snow.
Right.
It's very sad.
Yeah. Well, I think that the fact that we were unhappy and then we took the steps needed to move, and the outcome has been so good. It doesn't always happen that way, and this is something we were talking about yesterday too, where people are unhappy in a situation, and sometimes they think that just changing the situation will change their lives, but they haven't done all of the investigation into what exactly about the situation makes them unhappy, and they haven't really spelled out their needs. So in a job or in a relationship, you think that a new job, like making more money, or a different relationship with a different kind of partner will make you happy. But you've kind of, I don't know, you haven't done all the thinking, and then you end up in that next thing and find yourself just as unhappy. And luckily, I think that didn't happen here because we were so clear on what we wanted, and we saw a lot of places that didn't meet that, and we found some places and applied for some places that we thought did, and this place ended up being the best, right?
We beat all those other suckers out.
Yeah. And
now,
it was just like a perfect situation, but all the steps leading up to it seemed very discouraging. You know, that first place we applied to that seemed so perfect, and we were so bummed afterwards, and we're like, how are we going to find a place as good as that? And we compared every other place that we saw afterwards to that, and this place is better.
Yep.
You know? And so that's another lesson in just trusting the process, I think.
And we have equally as cute, equally as old landlords.
Maybe even cuter.
And younger. Yeah. It's quite nice. Well, okay.
So none of that was true, what you just said.
Yes. So, sorry, listeners, I just kicked my table with my microphone on it. So hold that thought, like contain that thought, because when Sarah and I were discussing how we can approach the wall episode, which, like I said, we'll still do, we were like, okay, to make the conversation easier for us, let's think of 5 or 6 questions. And when we listen to it, when we watch it, think about those think about that list of questions and filter it through that, right?
Right.
So one of the questions is, which I think we'll do for everything we watch or read or listen to. One of those questions is, can you relate any of what happened in this piece of in this work to your own life? What'd you say?
Obra.
Is that work in
It's
Spanish?
just like the perfect word that
Is
we
it?
don't have. I
In
don't know if
English?
we have an exact match.
Ovre?
Obra.
Oh, hey, obra.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, can you relate any of this to an experience you've had in your own life? So when you were saying just now, people replace one shitty situation with another shitty situation, have you done that before?
Oh yeah, certainly.
Can you tell me how or when? Because I want to think of my own, but I need
All
time.
right. So the first one that is coming to mind, but I think jobs are oftentimes a very salient example, right? Because people have a shitty job and they think maybe this job would be less shitty if I got paid more money to do it. But in all actuality, it's still going to be shitty. And you're just going to get, so if you get a raise in the same company, for example, or you go to another company doing a similar job but for more money, you'll feel the same. You'll temporarily be much happier that you're making more money, but then you'll probably adjust your lifestyle so that it kind of evens out and you're back to that old set point, right? Whereas maybe what you needed to do was understand what you really want to get out of a job, and taking the steps to find a new job that actually makes you happy might come with a lot of scary things, like maybe taking less money, maybe taking a pay cut, having to not downgrade your lifestyle, but downgrade your lifestyle, and work from that new place and like finding happiness in truer ways.
I mean, I have a friend who right now is doing that.
Right.
They have one job right now, and they're taking basically the same job in a different company because they're making more money.
Right.
I mean, I hope they get what they want out of it, because that's the goal.
And yeah, for some people are happy to do their job, put in the hours just for the freedom they have a couple times a year to go on vacation or be with their families or whatever. Everyone has different needs, but
I read about this guy on Reddit, I think, yesterday or the day before, who banked a year's worth of, over 10 years, he banked a year's worth of sick days or personal days, and then took a year-long vacation.
Wow.
But most jobs don't let you do that.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
That's an interesting idea.
Pretty sweet.
Right? But the thing is, for New Year's Eve and Christmas, or for New Year's Eve and, New Year's and Christmas, everyone in my company we got the 2 weekend days off, and then
Monday, Tuesday,
then the eve, and then the day off.
So 4 days in a row.
4 days in a row. And going back to work after 4 days is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to go back to work. And that's a reason I kicked my table again. And that's a reason why when we were super busy at my job this quarter, I had non-consecutive days off, and I loved it.
Right.
Because my days off still felt like days off, even though they weren't back to back. And my work days didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm going back to work. It was just like, I'm going into work. It was a work day.
Right.
But then after so many days, so a year, come on.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
I'm sure he changed a lot during that time too, but who knows?
I wonder if he even came back to work.
Yeah.
If he was just like, no,
everything's an illusion.
I'm not doing this. Yeah. Also, I hate to break the flow of the podcast, but I keep glancing over at the monitor, and it looks so nice, and I'm so happy.
Yeah, I'm pretty into it.
Good job. And you look dead sexy with that microphone.
Wow.
It's mostly
the microphone.
You. Also, why would I turn my head to wink at the camera when I have an eye right here? Okay.
It's your dominant winking eye.
Yeah. What have I... I'm still trying to think of a time I replaced a shitty situation with another shitty one. And I definitely have. I just don't think I could think of it right now.
People do it a lot in relationships.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that. There was a time after my one long-term relationship, that was like high school, college, which I've talked about on the show. Then when I was single for that first time, then I got into another relationship. And not that it was a shitty relationship. It was fine. It just wasn't the right thing. Right. I think that's kind of an example of it. Where I was like, I'm really unhappy now. I need someone.
Yeah.
And then that's happened a few times. I think it happens to everyone. That's a natural human thing to clamp onto someone.
Right.
Because you can't clamp onto yourself.
Well, the great thing is that even if you get into a relationship that ends up not being the right relationship, hopefully you learn something from it, right?
Oh, yeah. And I totally did. And I'm learning so much in our relationship. You just not because you're forcefully like, treat me this way, but just the way your personality is and how you treat others, you by default command that back to you, right? So I'm just very aware of how it started with being very aware of how I treat you and now how I treat everyone, I think.
Do you have an example? You don't have to, but
I feel like
curious.
I feel like I just care about other people's feelings more
Okay.
since we've been together.
That's interesting.
Specifically since we've been together, living together.
Right.
I don't know. You're just such a good tiny little person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe one day I can put it into words better.
I think now we're just kind of going off the rails, but I think it's good.
Well, this is what the conversation is, right?
Right. I feel that what I've learned most in this relationship is, or I don't even know if I've learned it or if it's just been a byproduct of being with you and wanting to be with you. Because I feel that sometimes people, or I have at least been in relationships where I wasn't entirely sure of this, but looking back, it's very clear that I didn't want to be there. But sometimes you don't know how to label a feeling until you're looking back at it or until you have another contrasting experience where you're like, oh, I actually really want to be in this relationship. And in that situation where you really want to be in it, you're a lot more willing to put in the work. Whereas if you don't actually want to be in the relationship, and I think a good way of knowing, because sometimes I feel like people get so comfortable and scared of leaving relationships that, like for me, I'm like Googling, how do you know when to leave a relationship? Or like, right? It's like, if you're
Googling
asking, no, don't look at my search history. It's like, if you're asking that question, maybe you shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? If you have to convince yourself, but I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either until my first relationship.
Right, because people oftentimes, especially older people who are our parents' age, will advise you to stick it out and just learn from it. And I think oftentimes that is what you should do, but not always. And when everything that all of the effort you're putting into a relationship doesn't feel worth it, then that's when you need to leave. But in our situation, like we've had challenges, but it's always grounded by just knowing that I need to do the work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like it's always been very contained. We've never like screamed at each other.
No.
Well, I can't imagine you screaming at anyone.
I never will.
And I don't scream at people anymore. I feel like I just get mad at myself. I screamed at the peanuts last night. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yesterday we were making sushi. And by the way, Eric introduced me to this concept of peanut sushi.
Peanut avocado roll, specifically.
What the heck? I've never heard of those before.
Just get some salty ass peanuts.
And they're so good.
Avocado in a roll.
It's really good. You need to try it.
So we both separately went to the store. Yes, definitely try it. I did yesterday. I did avocado, salted peanuts, and
tofu, fried tofu,
sriracha mayo.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. So I went to the store and bought peanuts, and I was like, oh, I'm going to snack on these too because I love nuts. Specifically D's. And I got Planters dry roasted peanuts, and I came home and I was eating them, and then I looked at the ingredients. I was like, oh, because there's so many spices on them. There's like, you could taste like celery and paprika.
Are there?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I think the dry roasted I think you're supposed to assume that they're seasoned. I think it's part of the dry roasted name. I don't know. I'm not a peanut connoisseur. Maybe I am. Just a tiny bit. So I was reading the ingredients and it was like this, that, the other thing, gelatin. And I was like, what? No. And again, this is not a vegan podcast, but this is part of our lives. That's the only time I ever feel like I ever want to make myself throw up. it's
The thought of having it.
the thought, yeah, it's so deeply ingrained to me that I don't want to eat animals that when I accidentally do, it really, really freaks me out, you know? And I mean, I did it for dramatic effect to make you laugh, but I was also pretty angry. So I took the peanuts and I screwed the cat back on. I opened the door and it's like 20 degrees outside and dark. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you, planters. Fuck these peanuts. And I slammed them like on our porch outside.
Our neighbor's like, everything okay over there?
Like, get back in your house. With that being said, I do enjoy planters. I'm not trying to bash them as a company, but why do you need gelatin in your peanuts? Anyway.
Why did you feel the need to be diplomatic there? You just like reined it in. You felt a little bad for cursing their name. You're like,
well,
nothing against planters.
That peanut guy is so cute. He walks with a cane. You have to feel some sympathy.
Okay. It's interesting. I never feel that way if I accidentally ingest or imbibe animal products. I'll stop eating it. I'll stop eating it, but it never freaks me out that much, which is weird.
So then our friends came over, our two buddies came over, and they went to the store on the way to get more ingredients. And I was like, hey, guys, I accidentally bought these peanuts that aren't vegan. Can you buy me vegan peanuts and we'll switch when you get here? Like, I'll gift you these and you give me those. They're like, fine. So they bring them over, we open them to roll, and we just snack on them all night. So then we end up at the end of the night with half a jar of peanuts, and they end up with a full jar of peanuts to take home. Those absolute rat bastards. I hope they have a not happy new year.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding. I love them.
Okay.
They're my best friends.
Besties.
What's next?
What's next?
That was 2 of my points.
Interesting.
Yeah. What did you
see? I don't like my points because I like the fact that all of these relate to both of us, and we can have a conversation.
Yeah. I'll just name another one then.
Do it. Go for it.
No, they weren't in chronological order, but so one I wrote down, this is also towards the beginning of the year. I wrote down how we joined a climbing gym.
Yeah.
And I was just trying something new with you and my friends. So like Trav had climbed earlier in his life,
right?
And he wanted to get into it again. And now he's trying out for American Ninja Warrior, which is sweet. And he was like, yeah, you should join the spot in Boulder. It's like one of the best climbing gyms. People from Boulder are like, the spot is the best climbing gym that's ever existed.
It's pretty sweet.
It is pretty awesome. It's huge. The mat smells like feet, which you know is a good thing because a lot of people want to climb there, I guess. I think that's impossible too. You can't have a climbing gym without it smelling like feet, right?
It doesn't smell that bad. I've been to regular commercial gyms that smell much worse.
Ugh, men's locker rooms, dude. Anyway, so we started climbing, and I enjoyed it a lot for a while, and then realized it just I wasn't getting into it. Like Trav specifically was super stoked on it and still is. It's been almost a year, which is great. But for me, I really love running and I really love weightlifting. And sometimes I kind of forget that.
Right.
And I just stop for however long. And I think climbing made me like, okay, well, I tried this new thing and I tried it with my friends and we went once a week or twice a week and it was a thing we all did together. And then it was kind of a bummer when I was like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. But it made me want to run and lift weights. I was like, this is what I really love. And it kind of reaffirmed that in my head.
Yeah. I feel like this year has been very weird with fitness for me because 2017 was the first full year that I was lifting. I just joined a gym for the first time at the end of 2016.
Which is surprising to me. Well, because I know you worked with the coach, which helps, but your form is so good and you can lift so much for your size.
Body weight, yeah.
And it's just,
I could at one point at least.
Well,
we've
all been there.
Because I've never been I've never been good at sports at all. Like mile took me 12 minutes to run in high school to pass PE. I was always the person who was just not working, like not playing the sport until the gym instructor looked at me and be playing softball. And I'd just be like, it's my turn to bat. Do you want to just go? And people would be like, sure.
Did you never bat?
No, never once.
Remember when when you visited for the first time when we went to the batting cages.
Yes.
I have a video of Sarah just chopping away at the softballs getting lobbed in there.
Mm-hmm. But 2017, I was so active, I think. Like I was working with a trainer, I was doing powerlifting, I got really, really strong. There was a time when I was counting macros, and then
Boo.
Yeah, I'm not into it. I feel like I've learned, I don't know. I feel very mixed about fitness now, and maybe I'll always feel this way because it's not my one thing. Fitness is, it's an important part of our relationship and my identity, I think, but it's not. I still feel like myself when I'm not working out regularly. And now it's been a while since I've worked out consistently. I've been doing what? What's wrong?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since I've worked out consistently. I've been like bopping around between yoga and doing Couch to 5K program and intermittently lifting. And then I finally rejoined a gym just for the sake of my mental health because I need some form of activity at least. It doesn't really matter what to feel like a normal human. And I am enjoying getting strong again, but I can squat like 60 pounds less than I could when I was at my strongest, right? And for someone who's as small as me, that's a lot.
Wait, what were you squatting?
I got up to 160 for 5.
That's insane.
Right? And I think I weighed 100. I weighed less than I weigh now. I weighed 107 pounds.
Doesn't even sound possible.
Mm-hmm. I was strong.
My squat wasn't even that much higher. My strongest.
Yeah, but you had a really high. Your bench was really high.
Meh, doesn't matter.
Anyway, I think that fitness makes me think a lot about the impermanence of things. So, but specifically physically, because I feel as if with other things like guitar, if you put down your guitar for a while, you'll be a little rusty, but it's easy to gain it back. But with fitness, I'm only squatting like 95 pounds now, and it's very humbling. And it makes me realize that as much as I thought being this weight or lifting this weight mattered at the time, it doesn't really matter in the long run. What really matters is that you're being healthy, you know?
I like that we're both into fitness, and I feel like, you said when you aren't working out for a period of time, you still feel like yourself. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's changing for me.
Which part?
I feel like when the more I take breaks, the weirder it feels. Like I should be doing it.
Right.
Like it's becoming a part of me.
Yeah.
Whereas when I don't play music for however long, I feel very strange. Right? Mm-hmm. Because I've been doing it for so long. Mm-hmm. And I feel like now if I'm not running or lifting for however long, if I'm doing one or the other, it's fine. Mm-hmm. But if I'm not doing either, it doesn't feel right. It feels like that's something that I should be doing because that's me.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's good.
Do you think it's good?
I think it's good in some ways. My dad would say, you're very much like your mother. You have to stay on a schedule and, no one can break you out of that. Like if someone's like, hey, we got to go do this thing. We're like, oh, well, I have to go do my run first.
We have to talk more about this later because that is the exact opposite of how I am.
Yeah.
And sometimes it makes me want to kill you.
Yeah.
But, okay, continue.
I don't think, is it that bad?
It's just that it's not that it's fundamentally bad. It's just that it's so different from me. Mm-hmm. And I like to be spontaneous and you don't.
Right. And that's something that, I'm going to blow up my divorced parents spot.
What?
That's something that always bothered my dad about my mom, which is understandable. But at the same time, I have respect for my mom because she's like that, where I understand it's annoying. And I understand that sometimes I do that to people where I'm like, I have to go
quite
do this.
often.
I have to go do this thing. Yeah. What else do I do it with?
Well, it's just in general, once you've made a decision, you really, I feel like other people contradicting your decision or attempting to sway you makes you dig in even more than makes you feel more strongly than you actually do.
Like going to parties?
Yeah. Going to parties or, you really don't like going places unless
I really want to go.
It's oh God. It's just insane to me that you'll drive several hours away to the mountains, camp out, and hike a 14er, and that's like fine. But sometimes you're like, I don't want to drive to Boulder. Do you know what I mean? Or you'll get really upset in a parking lot because it's hard to find. And I'm like, oh my God, Eric, calm down.
But there are a lot of people causing congestion in Boulder, where in the mountains it's the opposite. And I can be free and alone.
Right.
Maybe I just don't like people.
I know.
I really don't.
But see, this is hard because I work at home.
Yeah.
And I like in my free time to not be at home. And you work in a warehouse around other people. And in your free time, you like to be at home. And I'm like, can we go to a restaurant? And you're like, can we just order? Can we bring it home? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Sit across the table from me for 40 minutes, please.
We've been doing this is what we do.
Someone else's table.
Oh, okay. Hey, can we get another table in here? Hey, we need a backup table in here.
Oh man.
Which is something, that we didn't know would happen until we moved in together. And now we learn.
Oh, I wonder if you'll feel the same way. If you'll feel the same way when you're also self-employed. It's interesting to me to figure that out. And also, it's so unexpected. And I feel like when I'm describing you to other people and I describe this aspect of you, it doesn't connect because you present as so extroverted.
Well,
you know
I am,
I mean?
but
you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, of course I do. It's my brain.
But it's I love being around people is the interesting thing.
You just don't like talking to them.
I love observing people. I like talking to people if it's not like small talk.
Yeah, that was of course an overstatement and an exaggeration.
Right.
Because well, one of my favorite things is my close friends who now know you pretty well. You're very introverted at first, and then you slowly blossom, right? So my dad's like, oh, like, I want to know Sarah more, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, you live across the country. I mean, it takes some time, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, like Sarah said this thing, and it was so funny. She did this thing. And everyone's like,
what?
Your girlfriend, Sarah? The one who like doesn't talk? And I'm like, you have to understand, at a certain point, she becomes this totally different person, right? So I remember one time at the climbing gym with Travis and a few of our other climbing buddies, there was a song on, you like danced or something on the mat, and everyone was like, what is she doing? I've never seen her do anything like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, see, you just have to spend time. Whereas me, I meet people and I'm like, which is really annoying probably.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's very useful for our relationship because when we're meeting new people together, you are very much not a buffer, but you're a lubricant. You are my social lubricant. You know what I mean? You make me more me, I think.
Yeah. And you definitely make me less me, which is good.
Is that true?
I mean, in some ways. Another thing I've learned since we've been living together is like how to reel it in sometimes. And then I don't always need to be talking or entertaining, which I like. And I feel proud in a way that I can be that kind of person.
Okay.
But at the same time, sometimes it's annoying and it's too much.
Okay.
Right? If I'm always like, blah, 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 and it's like, hold on, you need to stop. Now I kind of know how to do that a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, it's so fascinating to me, what I was saying before, how you're extroverted and you really like being the funny person and entertaining people, and you get validation when people find you funny. But you also really like to be alone. Whereas I also really like to be alone and like thrive when I'm alone because I like learning all the time and I could just listen to books for hours and be fine. But I also really like when I'm presented the opportunity to be around people, I will almost always take it because I don't even know why. Like what about me makes me that way?
Yeah.
It's like I'm perfectly happy to drive an hour and a half to hang out with people.
Whereas I'm like,
can you come to me?
Always come to me.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
Well, it's annoying that our friends who are coming tonight for New Year's Eve, live so far away.
Right.
Because I want to start a D&D podcast with him. Also, I thought of this when you were saying, when you were self-employed. And I just wanted to say, if you want Eric to be self-employed, consider joining our Patreon.
No.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. We don't have a Patreon. It's just a joke. Not yet.
Oh boy.
Where are we? What were we talking about?
I don't know how this started.
I love it though.
Right.
I love it.
I really enjoy this format so far.
Because it's making me appreciate things I probably wouldn't have thought of so much about 2018.
Yeah. Do you have another
climbing.
thing to talk about, or?
I have 2 more things that I wrote down.
Well, to wrap up this climbing thing, I think that.
Well, you also did it.
I think that this is a theme where we try new things and then realize, if I'm not all in on this, then let's cut it out so we can focus on what we really care about. And I think this is like the entire theme of my journey right now. And I think it's going to continue to be the theme in 2019, is just cutting away the BS and doubling down on what we really care about. That being like music and writing for me, and the second channel that I'm starting, all about like psychology and self-development stuff. And I don't know, I feel like at some point in this year, because I remember many episodes back, we did an episode on music. We did 2 on music. And I feel like we ended both where I was in this state that I've talked about since, or this sort of mindset that I talked about again after we saw the Front Bottom show, so a couple of episodes back, where I'm like, music really is the only thing that I care about, really, really, really. So why am I bothering learning all these extra hobbies to just kind of like fill this emptiness and to make myself feel busy and like I'm accomplishing things, when really I should just be learning how to play guitar, which I never do because I'm always distracting myself with work or cooking or going to the grocery store. You know what I mean? So I think climbing was like that for you, where even if you really want to make it work, sometimes it just doesn't. You have to be honest. And now you run and you lift, and it's great and it feels rewarding.
Well, yeah, because it's what I really want to do. And it's hard to tell one of your closest friends who is just as stubborn and wants things to go the way he wants it to go as much as I do. Say, hey, I know you love climbing, but I'm not really feeling this, so I'm going to cancel my membership. And have them be unhappy about it, which is understandable. I mean, he wasn't unhappy because he's an asshole or something. He's unhappy because he wants to climb with his friend.
With you. Yeah.
Right? I'm like, I'm sorry, I love you, but I need to do this because this is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah. But you know what? I think this is a good question to ask is, how can you tell how do you, like, what's that line that you cross where something is kind of a pain, but sometimes you know that if you push through it, it'll be very rewarding, versus sometimes you know that you'll push through it and you'll just still be empty and kind of hate it. Yeah. How can you tell sometimes?
Well, this is like the same thing we were talking about before. I don't know if you can. I think you just have to
choose. And sometimes making a decision is really just the most important thing. Just like, and not thinking so much about the cosmic repercussions of your decision. Just commit to something.
Yeah. But it depends on the situation, of course. But like with the gym membership, if you're like month to month, like we were at the climbing gym,
right?
And it's like, okay, I'll spend another $50 this month and try to push through it. And then you don't, and you're like, okay, well, the only thing, like now I know I don't want to do it for sure. And the only thing I lost was $50.
Right.
And I still got to work out in a new way and spend time with my friends. So like, I know I don't want to do it, but it wasn't a waste.
Yeah.
Of course, it's different when it's like a relationship and if it's like eating at your soul. But if it's eating at your soul, you will know you don't want to push through it.
Right.
And you'll know it's the right thing to do to end it.
At some point.
Yeah.
It's a big question. Because, and this kind of relates to another moment we were talking about yesterday, which was hiking for me. I hiked 2 14ers this year.
That's on my list.
Got quite violently ill during both hikes, but still made it to the top and back down. And when I think about it, I mean, obviously the first one, Mount Bierstadt, I was a lot sicker. And so it felt like a lot more of an accomplishment afterwards. And I also had like a borderline spiritual experience at the top. So it was very easy for me after waiting a couple of hours and especially a couple of days and processing it and thinking about it. Like it's good that I pushed through this pain, made it to the top, and now I've proven something to myself. And so I did another one and it was easier. I still got really ill, but it passed. And then the most difficult part about that was just that it took so long. And when you're doing something so physical like that lasts for so long, it's really just about focusing on the very next step.
That's what she said.
That lasts for so long?
The whole thing, really.
Okay. I mean, I did say that. You're just focusing on the very next step. And that's all that exists.
You mean like literal
is like,
next step?
Yeah, like one foot in front of the other for hours if necessary. And I could hike a 14er every month and have the same experience. And at what point do I know I've learned what I need to from this situation versus there's more to learn here by pushing through? You know what I mean? That's something that's a question that I don't know if I'll ever be able to answer. And obviously there's a different answer for every situation and every struggle or every challenge. But I'd really like to have a little bit more of a system for knowing when it's okay to quit something.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's okay for you to not want to do it. Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. So if you never want to hike one again.
But see, I do.
But why?
That's a good question. But why anything? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, God.
I think that right now, the thing is I'd like to just hike one and not feel very ill. Like I'd like to have one that's just a normal hike that's challenging. A normal challenging hike.
We should bring those cans of oxygen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and this isn't a very spiritual thought, but it's just factual.
Yeah.
And that is that some people, naturally, their bodies don't respond well to high altitude. Mm-hmm. I mean, someone at work the other day was telling me how someone she knows somehow, they like flew out to Colorado and had altitude sickness, even just from being in Denver.
Right.
And ended up in the hospital.
Wow.
And like 10 days later wasn't alive.
What?
It was just...
That's terrifying.
Like some people's bodies just have... it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why or where that comes from. It's probably some genetic evolutionary thing. Mm-hmm. But, you know, most people, like, that must have been a really rare, extremely weird case. Mm-hmm. But, you know, most people come here and have to acclimate even to 5,000 feet. Mm-hmm. And they might feel a little weird at first. But then going up to 14,000 feet, when you think of it like, oh, well, like Everest is 29,000 feet. Like, it doesn't matter. Like 14,000 feet is very, very fucking high. Mm-hmm. And some people's bodies, it just doesn't work for them. The oxygen doesn't flow right.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that short documentary we watched about Everest.
Which one?
We were talking, I think it was the one that was focused on the Sherpas.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I forget which one because we have watched a lot. Mm-hmm. But when I didn't know that you had to like bring so many cans of oxygen up.
Oh my God.
And that so many people die because it's an astounding feat to climb up to Everest, but it's something that people do, and I know that. Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize that there were so many risks involved.
It's really an astounding feat for the Sherpas, like we learned in that video. Right. Because the people who come to Nepal and climb it, they're just you spend like $50,000 to do it. Right. So you have to have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And yes, they're in great physical condition, but they don't carry any of their own stuff. They don't know the route. Yeah. They don't set the ladders and the ropes. The Sherpas do all of that.
Right. And so we're asking at the end of this, is it even ethical to allow this industry to continue? Because these are poor people who are kind of compelled to take on this job as a Sherpa.
They're basically
Right.
forced to because they don't have any other way of making money.
And so I'm thinking about this. Obviously, you have to train a lot to climb Everest, and you have to have a lot of money. And if it's so hard for me to put my brain in, to put myself in the mind of someone who feels like they need to do this thing to be satisfied with their life. I know it's not my place to question that, because I'm sure I do. I feel that way about certain things that people can't relate to, but it's so clear that man isn't supposed to be up there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's hard for me. It's
human.
Hunan. Well, it's so Hunan chicken. It's so hard for me to be to relate to that. How can you just this entire idea of meaning and purpose, and I need to do certain things to say that I lived a good life and that I gave it my all. But many, many years ago, it wouldn't have been technically possible. And then what you would have, if you had been living at that time, you just would have lived an empty, barren existence. No, you would have found meaning in other ways. So how do you know when you're just being ridiculous? And then we talk about Alex Honnold, Free Solo, you know, just doing the most absurd thing, but you're happy for him because you know that it's something he needs. What's that about?
Well, it's hard to put that into perspective when the things we do that we need to do to find meaning in our lives is
Don't
not
hurt
dangerous.
other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, okay, Sarah needs to go in her office and close the door and write poetry. And she needs to do that for herself, which is a lot easier to handle than she needs to go climb 3,000 feet without a rope. That's like, no, you do something else. You can figure something else out, I assure you, but you can't if you're that person.
Yeah.
So again, it's hard to write this down. It's hard to perspectivize. It's a new word right there.
Perspectivize.
Perspectivize. Because the things we do is not dangerous. That's a V. We do easy things, not dangerous things. Maybe not easy.
Yeah.
But safe, at least.
Safe.
Physically safe.
Right.
So climbing the mountains was on my list. Even though we only did 2 this year. I did 5 last year, I think. And I wanted to do way more this year. But there's just too much stuff going on. I don't know why. But being there with you made me realize, you know, I've had those bad experiences up there before. You know, I've talked about on one episode
How you got lost.
How we got lost, and it wasn't dangerous lost. And how I found myself on the side of the mountain kind of panicking and didn't have a choice but to either go up or down. But physically, it was very hard and draining, but I never had any major issues. So this year, watching you, it just perspectivized things again.
Right.
Where it's like, wow, our bodies are so fragile. And why do we do this? Why do I like this? This is very hard, especially for certain people.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the feeling is really. Maybe further along in my life, I will. But it's a good feeling of just doing it, you know? Like I want to do 5 like I did the first year, this upcoming year in 2019.
Okay.
Like I want to do them. And before we did Huron Peak, we went out, like you said, we camped. And that was the second time I've ever gone camping, I think, in my life. Right? Because that was before my birthday when we went camping, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I had only done it one other time, and we were like 3.5 hours away from home. And sometimes I get a little anxious when I don't even want to say far away from home, but sometimes it'll happen when I'm running. And I'm like, the only way I can get back to safety, quote unquote safety, is with my own body.
Right.
You know? And that can be a scary thought because you're like, what if my body fails? What if my body stops working? What am I going to do? Right? So when we were 3.5 hours out there, just in the middle of nowhere and next to a mountain, I was like, wow, I have to just deal with this. I have to somehow not feel anxious or freak out. And for the most part, I didn't. Sleeping was not easy, but I'm excited to feel that again and get used to it, because I can't really say I'm someone who loves being outside if I'm not climbing or camping and experiencing nature, right? I can't be an outdoorsy person and love the outdoors if being outside hours away from home makes me scared.
I don't know if that's true, but
no, at least for me personally, that's how I feel. I'm like, how can I say it's like being like, yeah, I'm a drummer. I play drums. But sometimes when you're drumming, sometimes you just don't want to play the drums because they scare you. You're like, ooh, not today. You know?
Right. But does the label matter? Is a good question.
No,
do you
of course
need,
it doesn't.
Like, do you need to be an outdoorsy person?
No, I don't.
I think, I don't know.
It just felt nice to kind of accomplish that.
Well, I think what I'm struggling with, is time, and thinking about, it would be nice to learn how to camp and backpack and all of that and be in nature more. But there's also a lot of things that feel more important to me that I already don't feel like I have enough time to do. And how do you create this life where time feels a little more expansive? Like, I would like to travel a lot this year, but I would also like to build my business to a point where I don't have to be freaking out all the time about taking sponsorships. And I would like, so to that end, I'd like to make a product that I could sell so that I can sell something that I've created rather than sell basically the attention of my viewers to companies. Right. And then, like, on top of that, just normal fitness things that take up a little bit of every day, and normal human things like sleeping and cleaning and eating. Like, there's so much to do. And how do you decide, like, yeah, now I'm going to go camp. I'm going to go be away from everything.
Right. It's so much effort and time
to
do it.
I just, to me, it's not yet clear how to know when it's okay to just do things for the sake of doing them. Because certainly there's a time for that. And always expecting to get some sort of payoff from everything you do, I don't think is a healthy mindset. But to me, it's sometimes I don't know, especially like if you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk and he's like, from the time when I was 20 to like 30, I don't know, however old, he's like, I didn't go out on the weekends. I didn't buy anything. Like, I don't know. He's just like head down working all the time. And it's like, great. It worked out for him. And that's something that he really advocates, is all that hustle. And it's very hard to know what's true for me. What is the right balance between just focusing on this thing I want to grow, that I'd like to be my career or part of my career, versus finding like work-life balance, which is also like a very glamorized thing. Like, you could justify a lot of bullshit by saying, I just need some work-life balance. I'm going to just watch Netflix for a couple of hours every day. Like, how do you, I ask questions you can't answer ever. That's right. Like what I do,
It's part of our relationship.
How do you know? But I just
I
just like people's perspective, because these are the questions that really plague me, or not plague me. I'm very comfortable not knowing, but the thing about me is that I like to feel like I'm making some sort of progress towards understanding something more. And so it's like, I'd at least like to know this year I'm a little bit better at knowing what to prioritize.
Well, when I think about being outside and camping, and I think about those people stereotypically, they're like, all right, I'm going to pack up for my 9-to-5 job on Friday, go home, or not even go home. I have all my stuff in my car, and like, I'm going to go up to the mountains. And I'm going to do this thing. Right. But, and I know friends that I have a ton of friends. I am so popular.
I have a ton of friends, but I don't really like any of them.
Yeah. And I never want to go out with them. No, but I have a ton of friends who love camping and hiking and all those things. Mm-hmm. And that's their main, or one of their main hobbies. Right. So like you said, when we do it, it's like, okay, well, we're not going to record or we're not going to write music this weekend because we're going to go to the mountains. We're not going to have time or energy. Right. Because you go on a Friday, you camp Friday night, you go hike Saturday, you drive all the way back Saturday night. You just like have to sit on the couch and do nothing. And Sunday you have to get everything done that you didn't get done on Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. So
You
it's
gotta
like, when
wash
do
your
we,
undies.
right. You got to wash those panties. Like, when do you have time to do that? So I feel like, yeah, it's a lot easier for people whose hobby that is, you know,
That's their thing.
when that's the thing they have the drive to get done and to do and to feel. Whereas we have a billion things and it's hard to fit them all in, you know? So one of my friends got a new snowboard and she was like, yeah, I mean, my old one didn't work for me. It's like basically Sarah sized. And I was like, okay, so it's tiny. She's like, does she want it? Like, do you guys want to start snowboarding and skiing? And I was like, I would love to, but when?
Wait, who is this?
Amber.
Oh, okay.
And I was talking to her fiance about it because he bought her the board for Christmas. He was like, yeah, maybe Sarah he has a really deep voice. He was like, yeah, maybe Sarah wants to have that board. And I was like, we don't have time, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, why don't you have time? Like, you just got to do it. And I'm like, I am always here is the problem, because we were at work. I was like, I'm always fucking here.
Yeah.
And when I'm not, we do the podcast, we record the podcast, we edit the audio, we edit the video. We're doing a cover album. I'm trying to write my own songs. I'm trying to promote my band. And I have to like hang out with Sarah and give her love because that's the most important thing.
Right. And this is something we were talking about yesterday. It's like we spend a lot of time together, but a lot of it is doing this or, you know, working on side projects that we would like to make our main projects at some point. And it's like there also has to be some like time when your brain is a little turned off. You know what I mean? Which
is funny because even when our brains have been turned off, we've been watching Vsauce videos on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
And it's the opposite of turning your brain off. It's turning your brain on.
This is interesting. I have this problem where I very much compare myself to other people. And so I've always had like a super unstable sense of identity. And I feel like I'm only just now sort of learning who I am and what I like. And who even knows how much it's being influenced by you, right? Like I've always liked music, but certainly you liking music and being good at music allows me to step into that a little more, right? But it's just like watching Vsauce, I have a lot of like strong FOMO feelings because I'm like, this guy knows so much. It's his job to know so much and make content about so much. And he'll talk about things that I learned in college just kind of because I had to take general ed requirements or because I was in different majors at the time. I'm like, I remember doing math. Do I need to learn more math? I'm like, no, I don't have enough time. Or when you're talking about your friends whose passion is being outdoors and like skiing and snowboarding, I'm like, I will never be as cool as you because I'm just like, I just go to the gym, you know? And it's so easy for me to just shit on all the things that I do that are a little bit more convenient or less epic than what other people do. And I don't know, I'm working on just being like, you know, I do things that other people can't do also, you know?
Right. And, you know, hopefully, I feel like everyone in their lives should have people in their lives that kind of reaffirm these things. Reaffirm?
Yeah.
That's a word, right?
Yeah, reaffirm.
I didn't know if you had to write that one down or not. That reaffirm these things for them, right? So my friend who I work with, I keep talking about people. I'm like, do I say their names?
Yeah, why not?
I guess it's fine if I'm not talking shit about them, right? My friend Allison at work makes these natural, organic, would you say beauty supplies?
Bath and body supplies.
Yeah. So these homemade loofah soaps and sugar scrubs, and they're awesome and they're amazing and they smell nice and they feel nice and they work well. I'm like, how does she do that? That's so crazy. It's awesome. And then I tell her that, and like, I mean, I don't really, not specifically with that kind of thing, but you know, it's something that I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I wish I could do that. Right. But then we're in the warehouse and some stupid songs on and I'm like, hey, now you're an all-star. And she comes up, she's like, damn, you can sing. How do you do that? That's amazing. How can you sing? And I'm like, I don't really think about that.
Yeah.
Right. We're always comparing ourselves. I'm like, how do you make How do you make a soap that has a loofah built in
Yeah.
where you can scrub and suds yourself at the same time? I don't understand. She's like, yeah, but dude, how do you sing?
This is just an ad for
This is
a hidden
yeah.
ad for Auntie
Yeah.
Mommy's Apothecary.
Yeah.
Available on Etsy.
Use offer code. No.
Link in description.
Use offer code. We are pieces of shit. 30 for 30% off. No, but you know, people appreciate what you do more than you think.
Yeah.
Think
It's
about.
really cool.
I mean, most people have more talents than just one, right? You know, but you just have to compare in a positive way, right?
Yeah.
Robbie can ski and snowboard. Actually, he's more of a skier, but he also can just build things
Yeah.
somehow, right?
It's really cool.
Everyone has their things, and you have to appreciate yours.
Yeah. It's very hard.
Of course,
Like,
it is.
I still don't feel like I can sing a lot.
Yeah, and you're wrong.
And also, and we've talked about this too, about comparison, about how I compare myself to other people who can play instruments better than me. And I feel like I've just used that as an excuse for so long to not, like, because I'll never be as good as this other person, because how could I be? Because they started a lot longer before I did and have put more time into it and have listened to more music probably. Like, what's the point in even trying? But it's like, it takes me to age 27 to be like, I think I'm going to pay someone to teach me how to do this. So I scheduled lessons. And that's really cool to get to a point where you're like, you know, I'm just going to try.
Yeah.
I don't need to be better than other people.
I wonder if I'll ever get to the point where I want to take musical lessons about something. Because I've only ever studied drums and I taught myself everything else. But there's this pride that comes with that.
Right.
Where
That you taught yourself?
yeah.
Right.
You know, and I think about Dave Grohl. Like, Dave could probably be a better musician if he had someone teaching him.
Coaching him?
But Dave's like badass as fuck because in every interview he's like, yeah, I don't really know music theory. I don't write stuff down. I kind of just like do it. And everyone's like, wow, Dave, that's amazing.
Right.
But he would probably be better. He'd probably be better if he learned music theory from someone and learned more about playing, you know, because like we watched that 30-minute instrumental thing he did and he's like, oh, I've never played this fucking instrument in my life. And he like figures it out and you're like, wow, that's so cool. If someone taught him, he would be better at it.
Right.
And am I going to have to swallow my pride at some point and be like, because everyone's like, oh, I had to learn to play guitar. I'm like, taught myself. But really it's like, yeah, you taught yourself, but you're so limited in your playing. Even though it's cool that I taught myself.
Yeah.
So I should probably do that at some point.
I feel like everyone has that thing too where they kind of don't have to try that much.
Yeah.
Like, people ask me, like, how did you get into Stanford? And like, I just have a good memory. But if that's so much a part of your identity that you're not also willing to put in some hard work or, you know, adopt a little more structure, in my case, you're only going to get so far with just like remembering things.
Yeah.
And that's been my problem, is that I'm very bad at being disciplined with things. I just kind of rely on natural understanding or memory.
It makes me think about, I've been listening to a lot of John Mayer like the last week, maybe. I guess 2 weeks since I talked about him in the last episode also. You know, I think I'm like, I'll never be as good as John Mayer, blah, blah. And then I think, well, John Mayer went to Berkeley.
Yeah.
Like he has training. So, and that just, again, makes me think maybe that's something I need to do. And this is for another episode, but I think the only regret I have in my life is that I did not go to Berkeley when I should have.
Yeah.
I think I should have, but I don't know how do I know what
But
it would have changed in my life now if I had gone to Berkeley. Right?
Right. Well, I wouldn't be here. So
Yeah. That's
Probably.
a conversation for another episode at some point.
just
maybe.
like going down our alternate lives.
Yeah. That's actually a pretty good idea.
It's
Write
terrifying.
that down.
It's terrifying. I'll remember it.
Will you?
I will.
I know you will.
Of course.
And then I'll remind you when I listen to this later.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on to the last point?
Sure. This
Also-
is a nice fatty episode.
I know. And I keep glancing over because, I'm not wearing headphones, so I want to make sure we're still recording. That's why I keep glancing at my computer, and I keep glancing at yours to make sure the camera's still recording. because again, this is some newfangled technology. This is only the second time we're using, so we're hoping it works.
Wait, so you only have one more point?
I only have one more.
Wow, what is it?
Let me find it. Oh, well, this is also music, so this is perfect.
It's so important because this is like the energy we're taking into the new year, I think.
Oh yeah.
It's just this. Let's focus. Let's make something. You know?
So my last point is finishing the writing, recording, and releasing Exit Liberty, my band's second album, which is the first album that is not all me. The first album we made wasn't it was just me doing everything, and it was fine. But this is three musicians together creating something that came from my brain and creating it to this thing. But again, we discussed this a little last night. I'm so proud of the album, and I think it's so much better than if I were to just have written and recorded everything myself, because I had other people's input.
Right.
But it's just not good enough. I just at the same time just think it's not good enough and that I can do better. And this is why it's so important in 2018, because I hate New Year's resolutions,
right?
But it's just so easy to try to turn over a new leaf in the new year.
Yeah.
It just feels, it is a reset in a way.
I never understood why people are anti New Year's resolution. I think it's
because if there's something you think about in August that you want to change.
Oh, you mean the idea of waiting?
Yeah, just the idea of like it needs to be the new year. Like if you want something, just change it.
Right.
Change it then. But it's nice. We've been moving towards this anyway. So it's nice to culminate it in one discussion in one place.
Right.
And flesh it out and then be like, new year, new year, new me, who dis?
Write good music.
Write better music. Yeah. Because so what happened, what really made me start thinking about this is one of my coworkers, lovely Conrad, who is like our parents' age, when the album came out, he bought our album. He was like, oh, I love Exit Liberty. Look, I have their album on my phone.
Sweetest man.
Yeah, he's great. And at work the other day, he had his phone on shuffle playing through the Bluetooth speaker, and one of the songs from the new album came on. And I was listening to a podcast or something, and I pulled out my headphones, and I was like, oh, this is me. And then I listened for a second, and I was like, this sucks. I was like, I am not happy with this. It just sounded very boring and generic to me, and I was like...
What song was it?
It was Left on Red.
That's one of my favorite songs.
Thank you. I mean, I like it. It's catchy, it's fun, it's upbeat, but it's not different enough.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes I'll open up Spotify for artists on my computer and be like, great, 33 different people have heard this song. That is so lame. That's not... And it makes me think... Writing and recording music that people say remind them of bands they liked when they were in middle school, like Simple Plan or something like that.
Right.
Like it's not gonna ever go anywhere because it's not different enough. But it's good. I'm happy I wrote them, and every album I write is different in some way.
Yeah.
So I know I'm progressing towards to where I want to be.
Right.
Now I have like this mental thing of like I want to be there, and I think it's gonna help me actually get there.
Yeah.
Because who wants to listen to a band that just sounds like Blink or some shit?
Sure.
No one anymore.
Well, I think it's good that you have that fire under your booty.
Yes.
Your booty.
Booty.
Yeah.
I know you have musical thoughts for this year.
Musical thoughts for this past year?
For this past year and the upcoming year.
I don't know. I'm very excited to see how it's going to increase my self-esteem so much to be taking lessons. And I'm taking voice lessons and piano lessons and maybe adding guitar lessons, because it feels like kind of a waste to just be like, oh, I'm done with guitar now, because the guitar is the easiest thing to just bring with you and pick up and start playing a song and singing along with it. You know,
how else are you going to play Wonderwall at a party?
Yeah, how else? But it's just the way that I am and always have been, is that I just shit on myself relentlessly. And so it's very hard, and us recording the cover album, very hard for me to sing in front of you. Extremely hard, because I have such extreme self-esteem issues. And
it's hard for me. Well, it's not really hard for me, but it's hard for us.
Yeah.
For me to handle that and kind of work it out, because I'm so the opposite.
Yeah.
I told you yesterday I want to hire someone to do it
right.
for us, so I don't have to do the computer stuff and try to sing.
Right.
Right. So handling you, which is the total opposite of me, is something to learn.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I didn't really. I cut you off. I didn't.
No, I
want
don't.
to.
I have very like vague thoughts on this. I'm waiting for you to say something that I'm like can jump on to.
Well, I've just been. So we're doing the cover album, and already, especially after listening to The Wall, we're like, we should just do a concept album. And we were talking about writing our own music together, but I've never really written songs with someone. I've kind of just like with the band now.
Right.
I write the chords and the melody and the lyrics. Then I bring it to the band. And I'm like, what kind of drums do you want to put behind this? Like I have an idea of it, which is annoying because I'm a drummer and it pisses drummers off when people do that to you.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I want this beat. And like, well, I was kind of thinking this. I'm like, I know, but in my head it sounds like this, which is very annoying. So I try not to be that way. But the drummer's like, oh yeah, I'll do this. And the bass player's like, oh, what if I try this? And it's like a very collaborative thing, but it all comes from me. So how do you like write a song with someone?
It's a good question. I haven't done that either.
We'll find out, right?
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting also because we just started doing music together, like very recently. And I feel like it was something that was kind of in my mind, but I had ruled out as a possibility because I kind of assumed that you wouldn't want to have something else kind of like competing for your attention with your band. So I was like, I'm not even going to like,
Well, I'm excited for it because it's different from the band. And Exit Liberty isn't really a project that I want to like take to coffee shops and do like open mics and stuff.
Right.
Because if we're playing live, I want it to be a rock show and not like an acoustic thing. Like in the future, yeah, when people know our songs and stuff, and like it's cool to like strip them down and like play it in a different way. But I don't want people to think our songs are like these acoustic songs. It's not the kind of band we are. But with us, I want it to be more in that direction, and it'll be fun to go to coffee shops and just open mic and whatever. Because like, you know what I'm trying to say. I want the music to be heard the way it's supposed to be heard. That's why when my dad's like, I can't wait to listen to your new album, I'm like, me too. Put your headphones on. Listen to it through your headphones. It'll sound better.
Okay.
So if our thing's going to be an acoustic kind of thing, I'm excited to go play it. And it's just easier to do. It's easier to promote and bring live.
Well, it's interesting. I feel like the music that I'm going to create and that I have created is so me, is like so like you read it and you're like, this is definitely from Sarah's head, that I feel like my audience that I build for my other channel and some of the audience that I have already, it's just going to be so easy to give it to them and for them to understand it. So that's really cool.
I'm very excited for that. So yeah, 2018, it's coming to a close. 2019, lots of music, a lot of learning, not being scared outside, fitness, all the things we do at a higher level and doing it in a way that we're super proud of. That's the goal, right? Let us know in the comments what your goals are.
Yeah.
What you want to be and what you want to do in 2019. And yeah, that's it. Happy freaking New Year.
I just got to say, I can't believe that we've been making a podcast for as long as we have.
It's been
like half a year,
6
right?
months, yeah.
It's insane to me.
Almost 5 months, right? End of July to end of December.
It feels like
it's like half a year, yeah.
It's a long time. I'm proud.
Me too.
I'm proud that we only skipped 1 week.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next episode, we're actually going to talk about The Wall. We're going to watch the movie, and which means we'll hear the album again, and we'll have more thoughts on it.
Right.
Not sure what that's going to sound like. Might be weird. We'll see sometimes I just can't talk. We'll see what we end up talking about. And I think in the new year, I need to have like a set way to close out episodes. Because I was thinking so hard about how I wanted to say, let us know in the comments what your goals and aspirations are for next year.
Comments if you're watching the video.
Yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube.
You can also email us, advice@whatislifedude.com.
And thank you so much for listening, and hope you had a good year.
Have a theme song, please.